Hello, hello. It's been a while. I've been busy. I hope everyone watching, has been busy and done exciting things over the last year. I've got some other projects to announce, some exciting things to come up. Try and get this channel active and, conducive and something I can focus on again, rather than being completely dead and quiet. But yes, this video today is about a paper that I submitted to Asatru UK. It's very new, very shiny journal, Heathenry, the International Journal for Heathen Research. It came out earlier this year. It's an annual journal, and I know that we're very much looking for new papers for next year. It is international, so wherever you're from, if you're interested, please, I'll put some more details in the description box about guidelines and how you can get involved if you want to get involved. We're really hoping to kind of generate kind of accessible, interesting research and writing and, all of that from heathens. And really just kind of like collate all of the expertise and the information and just the incredible passion and knowledge of heathens around the world. That's our goal. So hopefully we can achieve it. But for now, here is a paper for the first journal that I submitted. It was technically a chapter for a very exciting book that I will be talking more about in the future, but it was tweaks and edited to suit the criteria of the journal. So here we go. The paper is called She Who Becomes Death, discussing the Norn Skuld as a death deity. As mentioned, this paper was composed from elements discussed in the book. I guess I could announce the title now. Valkyrjur, Servant or Master. I mean, it's pretty much all over my socials anyway, which, as of the writing of the paper for the journal, was submitted for publication. So that's exciting, but anyway. They played checkers in the meadow. They were merry. For them there was no want of gold, until there came 3 ogres' daughters of redoubtable strength from giant realms. From the outset, the Jotnar, and by natural extension the 3 primary Nornir, have placed themselves in apparent opposition to the Aesir. The arrival of the 3 ogres' daughters brought about uncertainty and upheaval to the supposed idyllic world of the gods. This world was a world of plenty, a world of merriment and cheer, a world without end or constraint, a world without conflict, though born from it. Yet, while the Jotnar are seen as chaos, conflict, and disorder incarnate, there is a degree of a facade to this characterization, with many of their attestations and appearances seeming an apparent contradiction to that representation. They often possess notable wisdom that Othin craves, or otherwise incredible power and ability that marks them as notably distinct from the gods themselves. The Nornir certainly fall into this latter category, as unique as they are, as different as they are from the beings around them, made distinct through ability and duty. They are most often described as agents of fate, of Eartha, determining a life's course and a life's end. They are described as dwelling in Earthabruna, scoring the routes of Yggdrasil that has navigated into their watery abode. Thence come the maidens, mighty in wisdom, 3 from the dwelling down neath the tree. Earth is one named, for Thanthi the next. On the wood they scored, and Skuld the 3rd. Laws they made there, and life allotted to the sons of men, and set their fates. Together, they reformed the cosmic chaos into a rigid, ordered structure, something that can be navigated and manipulated. Framed within this role, they are often equated with the Hellenic fates, dictating the lives, luck, circumstances, deaths, and general path of humanity. Yet the image presented in the literature is far more nuanced than the stated similarity between the Nornir and Hellenic fates often lends itself to. In this, Skuld, who is said to represent the aspect of the future within this point of comparison, possesses a name that is often translated to mean dead or should be, all far from conveying a sense of absolute certainty. Ultimately, Skuld cannot truly be equated with the Nordic Atropos, who was understood to represent absolute, inflexible future fate. So what then does she represent? It is in the common translation to debt that inspires a possible answer to that question. What, after all, is the payment for a life lived? We all have a debt to pay in the end. We live our lives, we enjoy our moment on the earth, but at the end of it all, we all must pay our dues. This wording is used in verse 119 of Njál's saga, suggesting it was indeed an understood metaphor of the time. Snorri spoke, I see you are fierce and daunting, and yet my guess is that your good luck is at an end, and that you have only a short time to live. Good, said Sharphedin, because that's a debt we all have to pay, but you need to be avenging your father rather than predicting my fate. Consider also that Skuld is listed by Snorri among the Valkyrjur, those battlefield-dwelling death-dealers. These are called Valkyries. Odin sends them to every battle. They allot death to men and govern victory. Gurun and Rolota and the youngest Norn Skuld always ride to choose who shall be slain and to govern the killings. This is a role that very much puts Skuld's death-allotting aspect to the forefront, associating her with a force that sits explicitly and comfortably within that realm. I reaffirm that the Valkyrjur are framed as the masters of the battlefield, dealing out death as they see fit within that space. This is an environment that the Nornir as a collective would appear to have no control over, with the exception of Skuld alone, who always rides to choose who shall be slain. The image painted is one that evokes the Christian four horsemen of the apocalypse, with the Valkyrjur representing victory, war, frenzy, and death, with Skuld most personifying the latter, the inevitable ends that people owe. Skuld could be seen as a collector of that debt, joining the Valkyrjur as they ride out to reap their share of the dead, but also operating beyond their jurisdiction, dealing out death across the greater landscape, wherever it manifests. The Nordic understanding of fate is not deterministic, but rather cumulative and ever-evolving, shaped through deeds and words. As such, it cannot truly be allotted in its entirety from a life's beginning, only shaped, suggested, nudged in the right direction, vulnerable to interference, manipulation, and change. The all-controlling image of the Nornir dictating past, present, and future does not sit harmoniously alongside the actions of the gods, the Valkyrjur, and nebulously presented other Norns. There is an inference that the creation of Usk and Embla occurs before the arrival of the Nornir, as they are two without fate, or Ologlausa, fateless. With the creation of humanity, so was fate moved into motion, born from action and time. With that mortal, ephemeral creation, so too did the Nornir arrive, and so too did the need for death, manifesting last with the youngest Norn, Skuld. As Ymir's murder created the worlds, so did the action of creation lead inevitably to death. With Ragnarok comes the destruction of the world, and so will it be reborn again. Death within Nordic literature is at once impermanent, goal-driven, and crucially, cyclical. It is often the result of machinations and calculations, akin to the exchange of chess pieces on a board. It is a realm that is strongly associated with Othin, though from a more disembodied aspect. He oversees, he receives. He has the dead dedicated to him, and he exists on the line between life and death as the gallows burden, Farmer Galga, revelling in that liminal position. Freyja occupies a similar role as a result of her implied possession of a Hall of the Dead, and, on occasion, fulfilling a role akin to the Valkyrjur, as chooser of the slain. Freyja is the most glorious of the Alsynja. She has a dwelling in heaven called Folkfanger, and wheresoever she rides to battle, she gets half the slain, and the other half Odin. Hel and Ran are hosts to the dead through their possession of afterlife halls, but there is not an obvious embodiment of death as we see with the pantheons, like Thanatos within the Hellenic belief structure. The Nordic world is not unfamiliar with such concepts, as we have figures like Jorth, Dagger, and Not, embodying the earth, day, and night respectively. Alongside my suggestion of Skuld being the personification of death and endings, the other Nornir would fit into the mould of beginnings and continuations, and all that those words would represent within that schema. This would also help solve the issue of demarcation when it comes to the three main Nornia and the plethora of others that are said to exist within the cosmology. The Valkyrjur, for instance, are also assigned the descriptor of Norn. There are yet others, Odin's maids, Hild and Gondul, Lok, Mist, Skogul. Then are listed Hrund and Air, Frist, Skuld. They are called Norns that shape necessity. As has been established, Nordic fate is fluid and ever in flux, shifting and reacting to daily actions and connections. Yet there are constants. We all experience a beginning, a middle, and an end, acting as a central infrastructure that Eartha, Fathandi, and Skuld may represent, a decree that even the gods themselves must follow. Other Norns may have been believed to undertake a role in the minutiae, manipulating the path of life and death with varying limitations, and as such are blamed for ill fortune and for uncharacteristic, often violent, often momentary behaviours. His head were now off if Erp were living, the brother so keen whom we killed on our road, the warrior noble, 'twas the Norns that drove me, the hero to slay, who in fight should be holy. In the above excerpt, Bellows translates Distia to Norns, and indeed these terms have been seen as synonymous by various academics, though it is far from a matter of consensus. These other Norns are often framed as the scapegoats, unfairly distributing poor fortune, acting as the bringer of all evil things and evil deeds. Outside of humanity, yet constantly interfering, plucking and pulling at threads. There is a notable negativity manifesting within these examples that seem to call back to the idea of disruption that came with the Nornir's arrival into the world. More rarely are we told of good Norns, though they seem to have existed within the collective understanding. High said, good Norns, ones of noble parentage, shape good lives, but as for those people that become the victims of misfortune, it is evil Norns that are responsible. It's a similar tone that accompanies death in the literature, outside of death that comes at the hands of the Valkyrjur, orchestrated it is by Othin, and accompanied by a perceived reward in Valhall. Those that die outside of this scenario, say sickness and old age, are subject to significant negative associations. Hel, the hostess of those that die in such a manner, reside in a hall struck with sleet, Eljusnir, sleeps in a sick bed, with herself being described as rather downcast and fierce-looking. It should be noted that Valhall was also strongly associated with nobility, not least due to the Valkyrjur's presentation in the later period as the mead-bearing daughters of kings. This then highlights a notable class disparity. Poverty was more likely to evoke Hel's Hall and its decor, a life defined by hunger and sickness. Misfortune at the hands of evil Norns dooms an individual to living a life of poverty and existing in a place of misery after their death. There are efforts to distance the actions and impact of society here that offers context to cultural beliefs around class and status. Ultimately, it is difficult to reconcile the oft-stated image of Eartha, Fathandi, and Skuld with the stated role of being the masters of fate in its entirety, with absolute control over all facets of life and death, when we have so many other beings in the literature having a power and influence over those very same realms. While Eartha and Fathandi have fewer attestations, the paradigm of Skuld being a personification of death seems less uncertain, anchored in etymology, analysis of the material, and the literary associations. It is in Skuld's core duty, that necessity, that all things must end, the one law that affects all creatures, beings, and gods within the literature. Death is a disruptive force, chaotic for the perfect world the gods had created at the beginning, but necessary for rebirth, new life, and continuation. As one of the Valkyrjur, Skuld rides above the wolf-wine fields, fulfilling the same role as her sisters. Yet she rides too across all landscapes, ensuring that life continues to thrive through death until the ultimate end and a new dawn.